SQL needs to be dead. Brave call to come to a data engineering conference where everyone's talking about SQL and try and convince you all that SQL needs to be binned. So I'll do my best and we'll take you through a story and we'll show you some examples and we'll see if I've had the effect at the end, right? So C3PO is a protocol droid. He's obviously having a translation issue there as well, so that's always quite good. But really I'm going to do this through explaining a SQL alternative that I came across when we were trying to work out semantic layers for our business data. Quick run through to a tracksuit, surveying 101, comes into the rest of it because we run the theme. What's wrong with SQL? Malloy as a language, and then we'll show you Malloy Publisher, and hopefully, God's be willing, we get to show you some demos. So who are we? We're a 3.5-ish-year-old company. When I first met Tracksuit 2.5 years ago, there were 30-odd people. When I joined them 1.5 years ago, they were around 60, and now we're well north of 100. We do surveying in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, continental US. We do Ireland and England, and we use those surveys to create brand metrics for senior executives in the boardroom to know how much brand equity they might have out in the market by different demographics, right? Pretty straightforward. We just take surveys, make them pretty, give them to executives. So yeah, we're growing quickly. The data team's growing as well, so do follow us on LinkedIn should we grow a bit more. And we also have a office here in Sydney in Ferndale, where we decided, up in Ferndale, just moved in, and we have one data engineer over here as well, so that's great. So these are some of our customers. You might do a car brand, vertical there, you've got coffee. All of these people go out and they do all this marketing and they kind of wonder what effect they're having, and these marketing type advertisements on the TV, they might only be affecting a certain demographic. Young people might not really dig what's going on. Dig, that sounds very boomerish. But they might not dig what's going on, and so then you go, I'm going to put out another marketing campaign and raise brand awareness in other ways, or use different methodologies. And that's the kind of things we support. 850 categories plus, 5,400 brands, and 2,300 questions. 2,300,000 questions. Yeah, lots of questions asked daily. What we do, I kind of mentioned it before, we go out and we survey people. Very straightforward demographics, age, income, just a little bit of a data point so that we kind of know the person that's there. And then we qualify them. So the survey might have 15, 20 categories in there, and you might only qualify for some of them. It's really easy to find someone who's heard of Coca-Cola. It's less easy to find someone who's going to be able to rate Snowflake, ClickHouse, and Starburst for their brand equity, right? So you're going to have to send out a lot of surveys to find people that do that. And so we qualify them, and if they qualify, they go in. Great. We then use those metrics. This is Airbnb, very high awareness of the purple line there. And so basically, almost saturation, you could say, for Airbnb. Here, for consideration, they're down at 40%. So, there's a lot of depth here that you can get and understand about your business out in the market and how you're attracting people. And so now marketers can go and market to see if they can improve that sort of statistic for them. So this gets into everything else. But as you can see, these metrics, you just look at them from time series, you look at them in comparison, you look at all these different ways, and we just continue to rewrite SQL 1,000 different ways with the same metric. And that's the reason why we went out to try and find a semantic layer that could do all these things. We also need to know, you can see a little bar there, statistical significance, and so it has to be statistically significant for the people to understand what's going on, right? So we can't show them data that's not significantly representative of the underlying system. We can also ask open-ended questions, which means we can do these nice little bubble charts, and you can see between two brands some of the words that might associate with that brand, all right? But that's the last of the marketing stuff, right? I mean, I'm not sure you guys are all in here for brand tracking. I think you're here for something else. So we are living in an incredible moment of time. We build these personalised chatbots with little to no experience. I was in the car with my brother-in-law, and he sort of hung up on his chatbot. And what he does is he's studying to be an architectural lawyer. He's an architect at the moment, becoming an architectural lawyer. And what he does is he actually puts a chatbot in the car, and he talks about case law between every single site that he visits. He's got multiple sites around the city, and he just chats away talking case law to his car, which is a little bit weird. There's image generation. I don't know if you guys are Star Wars aficionados, But C3PO was not in that scene. That's not a real scene. That was ChatGPT. Chucked out an image. Beautiful. Done. Complex research. It's great that you can go out there and you can investigate, what is the best data pipeline or what is the best technology out there and give me references and deep links into the internet so you can research things and get even further and even better knowledge. AI-enhanced IDEs, I'm using Cursor at work and, late Thursday, while trying to get all my work done so I could come to the conference, I decided that all of the database objects should not be plural, they should be singular. Instead of orders, there should be order. Instead of order lines, there should be order line. And it was late, and I asked Cursor to do it, explain why. Can you clean up all the DBT references? Can you change the aliases? Can you change everything else? And it just mocked it up in about 30 minutes. Pretty amazing. It's a time of amazement time. Natural querying, if you've gone to any of the other sessions, you've seen a chatbot. We're going to hopefully show you a chatbot as well. So this is a really, really contemporary idea at the moment. Are we on the dawn of AGI? Are we going to see that in the next few years, months, days, weeks? But the issue is, we're still trying to teach AI SQL. Essentially, relational database logic hasn't changed. We've changed the way we do it. We store things as columns. We do things a different way. But essentially, relational databases are still relational. The math doesn't change. Standardization, we're pretty lucky that mostly SQL is the same. A few little minor differences in the different dialects. But those are things that, make this a really attractive thing for us. The datascape is so big. There's so many different concepts out there. Trying to keep them interrelated and working is a key thing that why we wouldn't do it. You can't experiment very easily today. Interoperability, it's getting better and better. Almost anything plugs into anything else now, especially with Substrate. It's built on the sort of IBIS technologies as well. And, they can basically transpile one SQL query into another SQL query. So it doesn't matter what systems you're using. So it's really sort of, especially in the open source space with some of these other sort of platforms, it's just amazing what they can connect to nowadays. And then, finally, trained workforce, yourselves, right? We all know SQL. We all know what we're trying to say. We can all do a sub-select to get the most recent value from a big list of things based on date. Or we can do a left-outer join, filter that left-outer join, and we can do an inner join, and we can get exactly what we want, right? There's a huge trained workforce out there. But I'd put there's another side to this, right? It's a 51-year-old language, and I'm not 51. I'm only in my 40s, but I'm already feeling a little obsolete. And so a language that's even older than me, to know that that's still here and still chugging along and essentially unchanged it's pretty crazy. So I would profess that there could be better ways, right? There could be a gap. The signal-to-noise ratio, when you do joins, there's a lot of templating, a lot of work, a lot of repetition. And we have to do a lot of extra effort to get what we want done. It's not very concise. Unstructured data support, bolted on, lateral joins to get the data out. I love a lateral join, and then hierarchical nested data. You pull it out of your CTE and you go and put it in a special little CT that deals with hierarchy and then you shove it back in and you do what you need to do. It's all sort of cobbled on. And graph traversal, old Neo4j with the GQL, that's a recently standardized language for graph, but there's so many challenges with the way we do things in SQL that there's other languages out there that support it. So, I would profess that there's reasons we shouldn't be teaching SQL to AIs. And if we get past the notation and we get past how we write SQL or what it does and doesn't do, there's all of these things that the chatbot's not going to know about. These are deep data issues that we have. There's fan traps, where logical data doesn't make any sense when you roll them together between two fact tables. You've got the grain mismatches, you've got reporting date of the first of the month pointing to transactional data, which has a transaction from every single day of the month. It's not going to get that additional context without any extra input from us. There's join evolution. We tend to do all these views and queries and things like that out in the wild, where all of that join logic's repeated. If we could somehow bring that join logic back, put it into a bit of a semantic layer, I think we'd all be better off. Join ambiguity. Sometimes you join one way to users when it's a manager, another way when it's a salesperson. Pretty good point, right? Non-additive data. You've got the data that doesn't make sense across time or doesn't make sense to roll up because they're different categories of information, different measurements of things. Like say you've got a volume measurement and then you've got a quantity measurement, but they're in the same table. That's non-additive data. But it might only be able to be understood if you take context from another column, right? So you've got to encode all that in there. And so we're going to give this tangled web of legacy approach to a brilliant tool and expecting stable answers. I mean, I know we put semantic models out there for some of these chatbots. There's also ways we can train them with like examples of really good ways of doing the queries. But a more formalized structure, I believe, is the right way to approach these things. Now, before we go much further, I don't hate SQL. I really like it, right? I'm putting this out there as a sort of thought process and a bit of an idea of what we could be doing differently. We don't represent Big Malloy. It's open source. What we're going to show you is incredibly alpha, which is why we're excited about it, right? It's a little hint of what could be coming. I think AI is going to unlock all this really cool iteration and experimentation. Now, the reason I like that is because you've got these big systems, really complex, incredibly hard to iterate and try new things, but all the legwork can be taken up by these systems now. So we should be able to add new types of SQL, new types of connectivity, new types of actions that are traditionally really, really difficult to do with these systems. Perhaps the next language could be co-designed with AI. It could be, I believe Malloy is a small group of people with a lot of in-depth industrial knowledge who have come up with this amazing sort of, successor to SQL. Now, what happens when you harvest the hive mind of everything that anyone's ever written anywhere in the world, and you say, AI, could you tell us the best way to be doing this that's still human readable? I mean, that'd be amazing. I'm super excited to see where Malloy goes and every other language that comes with it afterwards. Because, this is not the end, this is the start of the story. And I believe there's going to be a Cambrian explosion. I love that word, Cambrian explosion, for analytical life. I think there's just a really great opportunity to see more and more, logos up there, more and more approaches to solving these data problems. Really excited about that. Now, Agile has got the Agile Manifesto. Malloy has the Tao of Malloy, which is a very, Zen way of looking at things. And what they profess to do is to be SQL friendly, but adjacent to SQL, to use similar concepts, similar ideas, making it really easy for us to make the mental shift into there. They see Malloy and SQL living next to each other, not necessarily competing with each other. Concise and clear, just really bringing down the amount of words and the amount of documentation we create to make it easy to understand, and very, very specific. Composable, reusable is what I was talking about before. What if we could just take care of the joins in one place and then just do the analytics in other places? See how we want to pivot the data, see how we want to communicate the data, what we want to put on the page. A data algebra. So treats data as a network of relationships. Again, this means skinning down these things. And so it means even 5, 6, 7 things deep, it's still going to be able to work out the SQL that it needs to create to run back into these source systems. A living language. It's an experimental language. It's on the website. This is an experimental language just to see what we can do. I think that's a really neat idea. Designed for data explorers. I quite like the fact that you don't have to do the joins. You can just start to pull the tables, aggregate how you want them to be, really work with the data quite cleverly. And helpful by default. There's a lot of hints you can put into the language to be really, really helpful to help you do, to help offset a lot of these challenges I raised before when we were talking about the drawbacks of SQL. They've really thought about it and they've tried to make it as useful as possible. I mean, this is a wall of text, but let's just go through quickly. Things that are really interesting, but are actually different in SQL. Calculations live in the model. So a scalar calculation of one value below another that you keep having to write in every single pivot of the data. Define it once, throw it into the data, throw it into an aggregate, use it as a source for things, and it will continue to give you the right answer based on that, right? So it's quite a neat idea that the models are separate from the relational work. Joins become relationships. Don't bother the joins, just work through it. And if you need to be more specific, for example, if you want to do a join where you're going to do some additional filtering on another property during the join, you can upgrade to that part of the notation. So it really does provide an extensible way of dealing with the underlying data. It's expressive and composable. It lets you kind of move at the speed of thought, not so much worry about the underlying tinkering, but to try and show you the outputs and cross things different ways or work with different values. And it gives you a few extra ways of doing that. In fact, you can bring data from multiple relational data sets together and it can output them all. It can unnest underlying things as you go, which actually saves you all of those extra steps, right? You've got a receipt header and all the receipt line items underneath that. you can bring those out in a single query, where in SQL, you've always got to think about those two things as tangentially different, right? Metadata hinting, we'll give you a little hint on that later on, but it's really neat the way that they've given us an additional power to adorn this underlying data with hints, and those hints can be interpreted by different systems in different ways. So I'm not going to explain SQL to you. I can assume almost all of you would know what that says. But what we do in Malloy is it's slightly different. But you can see it's SQL adjacent. It's pulling from a DuckDB Parquet file. It's saying run instead of select, but then within that, it's saying select and order by. If you want to add more words and if you want to do an aggregation, you'd actually move from the word select to aggregate. So you can immediately read the word aggregate versus select. Those are the two different types. One's a projection and one's an aggregation. And you can work with the data as you need to. The biggest barrier to the adoption, when I found this, it was just a language by itself, and I was super excited. I was like, I found what I need. But I had to look elsewhere to find a semantic layer that I could deploy and try and work with in the wild, because this was an experimental language. It only existed in VS Code with an add-in and a notebook, that you could open and run Malloy in. So that's all that existed at the time. But shortly afterwards, probably about 8 weeks ago, they came out with this publisher. And it's really interesting. So it bridges the gap between Malloy as a language and an open source product that we could deploy internally, even if it's an experimental one. It's very alpha, but we'll take you through it. It works. It does what it needs to. So Malloy sits behind the scenes. It allows you to add all the semantic layer work, add all the Malloy packages in. Above that, you can use the REST API. They have an app that can connect to it, like a little app you can deploy, and it gives you a little pivot table, and it'll connect back to Malloy based on their API and their language. So you can do Malloy queries from the publisher back into the underlying system and do what you do. You can pull embedded analytics for yourself. There's components. You can drag it into a real app today if you were building one and you wanted to sort of experimentally show this data and different cuts of the data. Remember, the pivoting is one of the key aspects which is useful for this. It provides an MCP agent, and it also gives you an ability to connect back to BI tools. So their intention is to be able to move the focus of the analytical work onto Malloy and still have legacy systems connect to the Malloy server and still produce outputs that are valuable and meaningful and curated, which is, I think, pretty compelling offering. Right, I'm going to switch to Kartik and his laptop to take you through some of the demos.
Switch back to.
He's switched.
Tomorrow starts.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Marcel, for a brief definition of Malloy and tracksuit. So this is the example about how to define a semantic model. Over here, we're taking a quick source. We have a couple of dimensions and facts. For this example, we have just taken some Parquet files into an in-memory DuckDB. That's the source, and then how we extend it. You can add multiple joins based on how complex your business is. Over here, our basic metrics are like percentage, calculating various different metrics that we came across earlier about awareness, investigation, or usage. And then dimensions. So dimensions are like more about scalar. Measure is all about the operations that you do across your rows of the table. This is just the extension of the previous semantic model. Over here, all we do is just filter out qualified respondents based on whatever metric and how we aggregate. The hint at the top that says bar chart just makes this entire query into a bar chart without having to do any sort of external coding or any languages needed. So let's jump into a demo. So as you can see, this file is a notebook file, except that it's a Malloy-based notebook. You see the extension, it's Malloy NB. This makes it Malloy aware SQL syntax. The first thing over here, we have just taken a simple example just for one category, the car rental category. And we are calculating various different awareness metrics. The first obvious thing is to import the existing model that we built earlier, which once you import, you see all of those dims and facts and other semantic models. This is a very good example of the bar chart over here. Just by placing those commands, this entire query makes it as a bar chart. As you can see, there's some hints at the top where you can literally run any Malloy queries directly within notebooks. We have an out-of-the-box support for like Malloy extensions that is available in VS Code. And then some more examples where you can literally get a table out of these semantic models. Most important use cases where we reuse some of those models, say car rental funnel, and then just start filtering without having to do the same calculations again and again. There's a couple more examples, but this is currently running locally. This is not deployed one, but I'll show you a deployed. So when you start the server, this is the Malloy Publisher, the landing page that you get. And obviously we have a couple of projects, but the one that we built right now is the CSV funnel, wherein we get all of the configs that what we have defined in the cursor that showed recently, the notebooks, semantic models, and all of the data that we've got, dims and facts. And you can obviously connect to Snowflake or any sources. It can be Trino, or there's a couple more options up there, and the notebooks. So you literally get a BI service out of the box without having to do anything. I haven't coded any of these except for the Malloy syntax. So this is the same bar chart, and a couple more like comparing different brand funnels for the same category. And the next thing is about, best part about here is just go to the semantic model, and you see various options. What we saw when you imported the semantic model in Notebook. For example, the car rental funnel that we built, we extended it with a couple more views. Say, for example, run this query, a pre-built view, and you get all of the data here. This is pretty much useful for any non-technical people or business users to verify their numbers before getting it into notebooks. To get into notebooks, it's as simple as just running this. And the SQL you don't want to see. But the main idea being is like how easy it is for non-technical people to come here without having to do any kind of technical stuff. Just take the numbers, verify, put into notebooks. And then what extension we have done apart from this is to, Malloy gives you a REST API, then they give you an MCP server. You saw the architecture before. We've just plugged it into OpenAI. Basically just adding all the tools that Malloy gives into OpenAI's functions. But yes, for example, I'm asking a very plain question. What is the percentage of awareness metric for Turo? As you can see, it kind of discovers the MCP tools. It goes into, gets all those dimensions and measures. The advantage being here is we are not providing any kind of documentation about each of those models, but rather the AI kind of figures out based on those dimensions and measures that we have added in the semantic model. So it rightly calculated for the category. The main thing is the prompted awareness. And these are the month by month for Turo. And some more, like say, for example, if you wanted to be more random, like plain questions, how many are aware, more natural language way of asking. Tools. So over here, how many are aware of the brand enterprise, and you see just got this category, this prompted awareness. Basically, it just didn't filter out for an enterprise, but it just got the entire table, and then it knew that enterprise was there in that table. So that's how it got the 91.1%. Yeah, there's some suggested question. See which brand is most preferred. Enterprise, likely because of the awareness that you have seen earlier. So yeah, this is pretty much what we have like able to accomplish without having to do a lot of heavy lifting by documenting or extending your prompt or even fine-tuning your models according to your business, but rather do it in a smarter way of creating semantic models and not going into any other new languages, but rather SQL specific or SQL like syntax. Yeah, that's it for the demo.